One last try. Good evening. The Design Review Board number 1 public meeting of July the 8th, 2010 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Oliano.
Here.
Chairman Insua is not here this evening. Board Member Palmer.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Present.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on July 1st, 2010. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I do not have any oral communication cards.
I don't have any cards either.
Well, all right. Because Chairman Insua is not here this evening, we will need to elect a Chairman Pro Tem, Chairperson Pro Tem. Is there a motion?
I move that we nominate Mr. Simonian.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. There are no staff announcements at this point in time, so I would like to turn the meeting over to Chairperson Pro Tem, Mr. Simonian.
Thank you so much. Our first case this evening is 1-PDR-2009-052-A1550L Miradero Avenue. And Mr. Nazarian is the case planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Pro Tem, members of the board. As you mentioned, the property is located at 1550 El Miradero Avenue, case number 1 PDR 2009-052A. The proposal is to add 956 square foot, one-story addition to the existing 1,725 square foot house. The house was built in 1939 and sits on 12,960 square foot lot. The lot is a corner lot having street frontage on El Miradero, Grandview, and Mountain Street. The proposed addition is set back 6 feet from Grandview, being a street side setback. And if I may, I'll just come up there to show you. The proposed addition mainly takes place at the southeast corner of the lot, where the lot is the widest at that point, and the proposed addition creates an interior courtyard that will provide privacy, and is not atypical of Spanish homes. It's very typical to have interior courtyards with Spanish homes. The subject property is in the R11 zone. There are no environmental constraints. The historic preservation planner has reviewed the proposal and found that the addition will not have any adverse impact on the historic resources due to its scale and site planning, because this area has been reviewed has been identified in 2004 as Cumberland Heights Historic Resource, and the proposal, based on the determination by historic preservation planner, will not have any impact on that. The proposal is, like I said, 6 feet from Grandview, and there are currently hedges all around the property. Some of the hedges are within the city property, some are inside the subject property, and the proposal's height is only 1 story, and it does not exceed the height of the existing house. Staff believes that the 6 foot is actually taking place only at one point in this corner, and the rest of the house, the rest of the addition is actually more than 6 feet from the property line. It only becomes to as close as 6 feet at one point at a corner here. And staff believes that the addition matches with the existing house and fits in well on the site. Staff recommends approval of the project with 3 recommended conditions. One is to provide rounded edges around the proposed boxed windows, which will be these windows. And because they're so close to the street, staff believes that providing rounded edges will help soften the facade. 2 is to redesign the proportions of these 2 smaller windows that face Grandview. And 3 is that even though the applicant is proposing 2-piece barrel roof tiles, staff wants to enforce that and sort of emphasize on that 2-piece barrel tile be used and not as tile. That is sort of all if you have any questions, here the applicant is here in the audience as well.
Question, the rounded edges that you're proposing, are those used elsewhere in the project?
No, they're not. They're actually used boxed, but as we were going over this, it was a collaborative process between the planner and the design studio members, and it was determined that rounded edges might look better and because they're so close to the street, as opposed to the existings that are so far away.
I see, but then it wouldn't match the existing then.
There is a dirt sidewalk off of Grandview. Where is that sidewalk located in relation to the site plan?
That's a very good question. I'll be approximate. I'm not 100% sure, but it would be somewhere along here.
Right along the property line.
I would say maybe a feet or less than a foot away, but probably I'll being noted that it might be more than a foot. I will let the applicant answer that question, but it is right along the hedge.
And that existing garage, this piece here, that's on the adjacent property.
Correct.
And is that access from Grandview? It seemed like there was something there, but
I think it's access from Gambia.
I noticed a garage on the other side of
Subject property?
the adjacent property. So I'm wondering if you knew if that was...
I think there are 2
obsolete-
properties here, one facing Almerida, one facing Grand.
Okay, so it's a flag lot of some sort. Or,
I have a map. I'll take a look at it and answer that
that
question.
explains my question, okay.
But I think there are 2 properties. I'm not sure.
The 2-piece tile that we're asking them to do, is that what they have out there now?
Yes.
We have a couple of things to add as well. Gevorg has done a great job and he's been working with this applicant for some time. Originally, the applicant came in with a 2-story design, and we believe that the 1-story design is an improvement from what was previously proposed. So we just wanted to make sure you knew, we've been working with the applicant for a while, and about the 2-story proposal.
Do we have a...
Staff,
Go ahead.
Amy, I'll piggyback on that as well. There's been quite a bit of discussion both in-house and with individuals from outside the city regarding the street, the front street versus the side street issues. Because this corner lot addresses not only El Miradero as well as Grandview, there's also a portion that faces Mountain Avenue. There has been a determination made by the planning staff in conjunction with the city engineer, and it's been established that Mountain Street is considered the front street setback, that El Miradero and Grandview are considered the side street setbacks. I'm sure that there will be individuals that are coming here to discuss those matters. However, there has been a determination, and again, I'd like to repeat that the issue, which of the streets are setback, the side streets versus the front street setbacks, that's not up for discussion at this point in time. There has been a determination made. Mountain Avenue, or forgive me, I'm speaking, Mountain is considered the front street setback, and that El Miradero and Grandview are considered the side street setbacks. So if the board so wishes to address the massing or proximity of the addition in relation to the neighborhood context or adjacent developments, that's up to the board, and it is within your purview. But as to the required setbacks, that's already been made clear by both of those city departments.
I also would like to hand you some letters and signatures from the neighborhood. I have received 3 different letters, actually 2 letters in opposition and 1 letter with 2 signatures on it in opposition to this project. I would like to hand them out to you. And I also have received a set of signatures, looks like some probably 50 signatures in support to this project, and I'd like to bring them to your attention.
Do we have any more questions for staff? While everyone is looking through the material that was just handed over, there might be some questions, I would imagine, perhaps, in which case we could circle around and then ask staff at that point in time. Besides what was handed out at this moment, is there any other questions to staff in relation to this project? Well, we will make sure that the items that were just presented are part of the file. And with that, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing. Now, I have several cards for this project, 2 of which from the applicant, 1 of which from the architect. So who wants to go first? The applicant. Christina Wardenby?
Yes. Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. Christina Whartonby. I live at 1550 El Miradero, Glendale, 91201. I can just go?
Go ahead.
Okay, just a few notes, because I guess on the meeting for tonight, maybe you guys already realized that it said that it's a 2-story, but we're going to the 1-story. Also, on the plans of the actual addition, there's 3 steps, and the way they're marked, it says they're going up, they're actually going down. Okay. And also, the original drawings that were submitted show the hedges in a more accurate depiction as to where they are on the property. First of all, I want to give the reason why we're building this. We bought this house in 1999. The backyard where you see the addition was completely dirt. There was nothing there because the lady that lived there was an older lady and hadn't landscaped or done anything. So the house was too small for us. We have a boy and a girl. We had planned on building from day one when we bought the property. We have gone from wanting to build to adding on to the back of the garage and doing a 2-story. However, we realized if we did that, it would be completely blocking our next door neighbor's view of the mountains out their kitchen window, and we didn't want to do that. So we moved it to the location that it is now. And as Vilya said, that it's gone from a 2-story down to a 1-story. Oh, sorry, that was Stephanie. Given that, the reason, in addition to the fact that we just need more room because it's a small house for a family of 4, my parents moved here in 1976. We are an Italian family. We're very close. The only family that they have is me and my 2 brothers who live out here. They have no other family. So in Michigan winters, I don't know if any of you know what that's like, I want my parents to come and stay with us through the winter. And the last time they came out, they refused to stay longer than a few weeks because they said, it's too inconvenient for you, there's no room. This has a bedroom, which would be like basically a guest bedroom. So when they come or anybody else comes, we can actually offer them a bed. This is the only reason that we're pushing ahead with this, because we just need more space. There's no storage in these old houses. I don't have a place to physically put my sewing machine. Clothes for winter and summer. We need storage, we need space. So this is why we're building it. The building, we designed it to look like it was built in 1939, so it looks not like an addition, but like it's part of the original house. It's designed with the architectural details found on the original structure. Everyone whose door we knocked on, including the only 2 adjacent properties that are actually touching our property, including the home that they're going to be most affected because they're going to be able to see part of the structure, have given us their blessing on the signatures that you have. No one has had a problem with it. In fact, everybody's like, good for you. That's great that you guys can do that. It's a very unobtrusive building. The hedge is so tall that from Grandview, basically all you're going to see is the same as what you can see now with the hedge already there, is just like the roof line. It's not anything that I feel anybody should take any issue with, because it doesn't affect anyone. We've worked with the city, we've changed whatever you guys have asked us to do in accordance with all those things. We have no problem with what you're suggesting, what's it called, the conditions? The conditions, we have no problem. We don't object to any of those. We're more than willing to work with the things that you guys are asking us to do. However, the only opposition that we seem to be facing are from 2 neighbors, one of whom wants to actually get the city, and he actually said he was going to cut down our hedges, which, because of the shape of our lot, you can see we have an unusually shaped lot. Our backyard would be exposed to Grandview completely. We would not have a private backyard if those hedges were gone. When we bought our home, those hedges were there. They've probably been there since the 1940s. The city has no problem with the hedges being there. For someone to come and make an issue out of it just seems unneighborly, to put it mildly. I have actually on videotape this neighbor saying that he was going to bring his crew and cut down the hedges. I responded, it's on city property, you cannot cut down those hedges. He told me to sue the city. This man is Rubik Ovanesian. He's here this evening. I'm sure he's going to be presenting to you. I want to give you some background on why I feel that whatever he says should be taken with a grain of salt.
Okay, go ahead and wrap up your thoughts
1
in
minute.
conclusion, and then others could take
Okay.
over where you left off.
Another neighbor, when he had actually bought the property behind us, he had painted the back of her property without her permission. She came over and told him to paint it the original color. The police actually were called up because she felt so threatened. She felt like he was going to assault her. The police came out, told him to paint it back to the original color. He still has not done that. He's since sold the property. We actually had the police at our house today because of the altercation. He wanted to meet with us. Yesterday I told my husband, I don't think we should, given his character and how he's spoken to me in the past. A fence has gone in where a survey marker was. The survey marker is gone, which is not a felony, a misdemeanor. Since we did not see that actually be taken out. However, it's not brain surgery when the neighbor's fence goes in the same spot. All these things lead us to believe that there is nothing that we can do to try to convince him that we're doing everything within the city's recommendations, and I just ask you to keep that in mind, and I can show you the video if you would like to see it.
Thank you very much.
Okay? Thank you.
The next speaker is Bob Warnby.
Hello. My name is Bob Whartonby. I live at 1550 El Miradero Avenue. I am the owner with my wife of the residence there and the applicant to put this addition. through. We're just, again, as my wife stated, we're just trying to add some more room so we can have our family together comfortably, especially around the holidays when my in-laws come out. They stay for a month or two. When my brother-in-laws, they both got married on the beginning of the holiday season and the end of the holiday season. They were with us for 5 months, and we're tripping over each other in the house. All the neighbors love it when they come out. They take care of the yard. You know, they just really are integrated into the neighborhood. The neighbors really enjoy having them out, and we just want to be able to do that. My father-in-law is 74 years old. We're hoping to get this built as soon as possible, just to have the extra space. And this is the only reason we're building this. Originally, as my wife stated, we wanted to have a 2-story because the kids were younger, and we thought we needed a lot more room. And we just, with my son being a senior this next year in high school and going away to college, we also working with the city, brought it to 1-story. It was the neighbors and meeting with them when we had the 2-story originally designed. The 1-story just seemed like, it's going to be better for the neighbors. The position in the lower part of the lot puts it as low down in the lot as possible, and the roof line now is consistent with what is there. We're not going up above that at all, and it's maybe 4 or 5 feet above the hedges, and you see the tiles. At the beginning, when Gevorg was explaining and the question was asked about the dirt sidewalk, if you look at the plot plan there, there's a small sliver of the neighboring property where the east-west property line that divides our immediate neighbor from us. If you were to draw a line straight out to Grandview, that's where the dirt sidewalk ends at our property, and it continues to the house to the south. The garage that is immediately to the south of our property line is accessed from El Miradero, as is ours. Both of the back of those garages were painted the color of the neighboring house on Grandview when Mr. Ovanessian owned the house. He did that without permission from either of the neighbors. He just took it upon himself to go ahead and paint somebody else's property. He was asked to return them to the original colors. He hasn't done that. He's since sold the property. He no longer owns that property. He is not adjacent to us at all. He is across Grandview and Mountain near the entrance of Brand Park. He's probably 300 feet away from us to his house. Whenever I would try to go and speak to him about something, his fenced gate around his house is always locked. The little area where you would press to gain access or say hello has no electronics in it. There's no way to talk to him. It's like a compound. He's locked in there. I did get to talk to him because one of his workers was coming in the gate. And when we spoke earlier with a 2-story, when we were talking about a 2-story addition, he proceeded to tell me how I should build my house.
And you're out of time, so if you would just wrap up your thoughts and conclude as quickly as possible.
I want to just make it known that we're just building a 1-story addition. It's not getting in anybody's way. It's going to be, I'm meticulous when it comes to building. I did a 68 or 58 square foot addition on my kitchen in 2002, and you cannot tell that there was an addition there. I raised the roof a little bit and built onto the corner. You cannot tell. The conditions that staff has recommended, we're totally on board with that. I think that the drawing doesn't really look like how it actually is, but we'll make it to match the house. All the color, the tile, everything's going to match.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Franca Noravian.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Franco Noravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect for the project. I just want to let you know they're one of the best clients as far as wanting to do the right thing. The original house is beautiful, and they wanted to match every detail of the original house as much as possible, and it was nice to work with clients that want to do that. As far as the design, it is a very unusual shaped lot, and I was happy that by putting the addition where we did, we're able to save 99% of the house. It's almost, you're only touching a little bit of the house. And I think that's a good thing in these days where we're trying to conserve resources, and there's no need to demolish any part of that house because it's in beautiful shape. And so another advantage of putting the addition there is it creates a little bit of a courtyard for them. And for a lot like this where they really have no privacy, it's important to have a little bit of an outdoor space where they would have privacy. As far as the setback, we met with the neighbors, and it seems like the biggest concern of the neighbors is, number one, setback. They're saying that 6 foot is not enough, and it only comes to 6 foot at one point. And keep in mind that it's 6 foot from property line. There's another, I believe, 11 feet or so from property line, 15 feet from property line to the curb. So it doesn't feel like it's that close to the street. There is also concern, what about the shrubs, the bushes that are along there and their city property. And I explained to the neighbors that if ever those shrubs are to be taken out, we could plant new shrubs on the property line and let them grow, because that's not a structure and it can be put right on the property line. Those are the two main things. Mainly the neighbors want us to push the addition back, but by doing that, it won't be this plan anymore. It won't give them what they need. So we decided to keep it the way it is. And if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer.
What's the proposed ceiling height in the bedroom?
Bedroom is 8 feet. In the game room, it's 9 or 10? I think.
It drops down 2 feet, so I think it's 10 feet.
Correct.
We can't
Because
have
of-
cross-communication.
I'm sorry.
Is this being recorded?
The way when it drops down is, if you look at the elevations, we dropped it down as much as possible. So on the south, where it faces Grandview, that's actually a lower plate. It would be like a clipped ceiling. So even though the ceiling is 10 feet, it will come down to 8 feet when we get to the end. If you look on the elevations, you can see that. I even had to, part of it is less than 3.5 and 12. I had to make it a little bit of a flatter roof pitch in order to give enough clearance for a window. So.
Do we have any more questions for the architect? I have a very quick question. In the site plan, the wall that's off of the existing porch,
Yes.
that goes and touches the property line, is that existing block wall?
Existing block wall, correct.
I see. And are any alterations going to occur on that wall?
No.
And that's a legal, non-conforming wall that's going to stay?
Yeah, unless staff, it's a legal permit, it's original to the house, so.
Okay. That was my other question, and you answered the other ones with the adjacent garage and the sidewalk. Very good. With that, I think we have no more questions for the architect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Rubik Ovanesian. Go ahead, Mr. Ovanesian.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rubik Ovanesian. I reside at 1770 Grandview, diagonally across the street, the peach color house with gates on it. I'm going to speak in opposition of the project on certain points. With that, I have about 23 people that have signed a petition and opposed to it, itemizing the specific items pertaining to the points I'm going to bring up. Unfortunately, being a July and 4 to 5 day holiday given 4th of July, quite a few people are on vacation that have actually called and said that they wanted to express their opposition given the points we've mentioned here. So I'd like to turn in these 23 signatures in opposition. Second, I have a set of pictures I want members to see, and the important part is the addition is being made to the back of the house. However, the staff are saying West Mountain is the frontage, that's fine, it's 47 feet, you have 150 some feet on El Miradero, address, garage, access, front door, everything is on El Miradero. This is the back of the house. And I've told them, I called the architect myself, and I said, I have concerns, and we had concerns when it was a two-story, which was a monstrous addition, being at the gates of Brand Library. Our concern has been, and I've told the architect and I've told the homeowners yesterday that I'm okay with your design, I'm okay with your addition, I'm okay with your square footage, and Franco Noravian is a very good architect. I've actually recommended him to other clients for additions and remodeling. However, a couple of items need to be addressed. And A is where the shrubs are, those hedges are. Hedges are in the city's property. Where the homeowner addressed that Mr. Ovanesian wants to cut them, I said, these hedges do not belong to you. You're in violation. It's a neighborhood services should be asking you to remove these. Whatever reason, they're not asking. However, the issue is you've been trimming them. Can I trim them too? Since they don't belong to you, they belong to the city. And she got all upset and rowdy and stuff. That's the context of this discussion. Now, the property has sidewalk on El Miradero, sidewalk on West Mountain. The adjacent property at 1745 has sidewalk, has 140 feet frontage, 70 feet concrete sidewalk, and 70 feet when I bought the property. So many neighbors, so many people passing by. You have to imagine this is a very prominent corner. You're at the corner of Main and Main, and the staff need to take that into consideration and some of the recommendations. You're in front of the most important structure in this. This is Brand Library. This is Grandview, very prestigious street. Second, the city is spending $7 million in renovations to the library and the auditorium to renovate it, modernize it, expand it, so more traffic is coming. This is a 28-foot wide street. This is a destination-oriented location. You have a park here. Hundreds of people come here. Furthermore, the city, 6 months ago, beginning of the year, they've added a bike path to Grandview. And you might ask that this doesn't seem to make sense, but somehow they've added a bike lane there. Our concerns are...
You would wrap it up.
You mean 30 seconds. Our concerns are, we've told them, I'm okay with the design, I'm okay with the square footage, God bless you, build it, improve it. 3, 4 items. A, you need to address the setback. My house on a side street has a 15-feet setback at the northeast corner. The southeast corner, the house has a 15-foot setback. The other house that is adjacent to them that I owned it and bought it and remodeled and sold it, I bought it for my in-laws. They didn't want it, I sold it. That is the one only structure on that street with a 15-foot setback. Everything else on Grandview at least is 25 feet. So I'm telling them, your house is fronting on El Mirador, but you need to be sensitive to Grandview homeowners. Then 4 or 5 neighbors on Grandview are all we're telling them, slide the house back. The square footage is fine. You have a great architect. You have a huge storage room. You can twitch and turn it a little bit. Slide it over 7 or 8 feet. And then build a fence wall, take the hedge down, landscape, so at least people on Grandview are looking at something decent rather than a 20-foot monstrous. And I'm going to hand you the pictures. And we're also further circulating
Please
the petition.
wrap it up because you're already you're in overage time right now. So if you would just conclude,
We're also
please.
circulating a petition for sidewalk. We've had meetings with the city staff for the sidewalk. There's been serious accidents on Grandview. We're saying sidewalk is a very definite thing we need here. I'm going to hand these documents so you can look at the pictures where the sidewalks are. So we're asking them to move the structure about maintain a 15-feet setback, if possible, and they do have plenty of room in the central courtyard. And the architect is a great architect. He can easily adjust it. Second, put a fence wall 5 feet from the property
Please
line.
conclude in the next
That's
15
all.
seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I apologize. I have to leave to speak at the function. So with that, I'm going to leave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this project? Go ahead, sir. If you would hand staff your speaker card. If you haven't filled one already, you could do. Well, we'll find it. So come out, state your name for the record, and we'll find your card one of these moments.
I am Vartan Bartanians. I reside at 1754 Grandview Avenue, across the street from the Mr. and Mrs. Wortherby's. I put in a written statement as far as my position, and believe it or not, I'm here to help him out to develop a compromise as far as how this property should be developed. There were a couple of comments made in here I'd like to kind of clarify. There's been comments made that this building comes in to 6-foot setback from Grandview at one point, which is not the case. If you look at the floor plans, you have at least, well, you have 2 points that come as close as 6 feet from Grandview Avenue. The east wall of the proposed game room is actually away from Grandview. So I really don't have that much concern about that line itself. The garage that you indicated on the neighboring property, it serves a property that faces El Miradero. And that garage, the closest point, if you take the closest point of that building to Grandview Avenue, is about 12, 13 feet. I haven't measured it by scaling the drawings that were presented to you. That's what it indicates. It's a 13-foot setback, 12, 13-foot setback. The existing building, the kitchen, actually the remodeling work that the applicant indicated, it actually put that building closer to Grandview Avenue, just slightly, not the whole bunch. So right now you have 2 points, two building corners along Grandview that have 12-foot setback. Conversation that I had with the applicants was maintain those 2 points and maintain those 2 points that come to 6 feet to Grandview to at least 11. If you can't work 11, show something else. Do a compromise. 6 feet is too close. And what bothers me the most is not that 6 foot. You know, you heard some discussion regarding the hedges. The hedges are in a private way. They aren't within a public right of way. They're within the street. Those hedges could come out for any reason. One reason could be if the engineering department requires them to put any sidewalk improvements. Those hedges will come out, and I'll be facing a bare facade. And you know, with all due respect to the architect, that's not a happy facade. If that east elevation was presented to you as an elevation, you would knock it out. I mean, without any question. I'm not here to discuss the elevation. I just want to have that elevation to be screened from the street. My property is across the street. I have maintained it at an average of 45 feet of setback from Grandview. The code required 25. The closest point to Grandview is 35 feet. So I'm here. I'm not saying stay with 11, but 6 feet is definitely too close, unless you have some kind of a remedy. You know, those hedges. First of all, I mean, I hear all kinds of conversation. Whether the hedges can stay at the elevation they are, they could be cut down, they could be trimmed down. So this property should be self-sustaining. It should not depend on streets and a public right-of-way to screen or soften the impact. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
We have a question for you, sir.
I have one more question, one more comment.
Well, we
also.
have a question for you first.
Yes,
Go
The
ahead.
elevation you're talking about, is it this way here or
the one.
You're talking about this piece or this piece right here?
You know, it's the east elevation, the one that you pointed out first.
This part?
No,
right?
yes, absolutely. You know, if you look at that elevation, you have two flat surfaces. Even the roofs don't. I mean, the roof, the gable roof on the right, it doesn't finish. I mean, it doesn't matter to me as long as I don't see it. It's fine. And I'm going to take this moment to kind of. I don't want to forget that. I mean, what actually drew me to the podium.
Yeah, you're over the time limit.
You know, I'm going to. You know, I mean, give me 15 seconds.
15 seconds,
Yes.
and I'm counting.
The setback on this property is not Mountain Street. The front setback is not Mountain Street. I will challenge any engineer to, you know, they say it's been determined Mountain Street is the frontage, but they're not discussing how that determination is made. That determination is made based on a 1966 zoning variance case that was applied on this project.
Thank
That
you,
was
Mr.
never-
Vartanian.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to come out. The next speaker on this project is Serena Rockwell. Please come up to the podium, state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Serena Rockwell, and I didn't really prepare anything. I just really came out to support the project. I know that Christina and Bob have really bent over backwards to make sure that they followed all the regulations. I think it's a fabulous project, and I'm not really sure why people are getting hooked up on the bushes in the front, because that really has nothing to do with their add-on and remodel. And next time I come, I will have something more concrete with facts, but as a neighbor, I wholeheartedly support this project. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. And you live on Elmer?
I live on El Miradero as well.
Okay. 1509.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, can I just
yes.
add, too, that I think Bob has really taken into account the neighbors to make sure that they don't block their view, and I just think that they've just really taken into the community, really thought about the community with their project.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? No? Well, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public. Oh, but we do have a rebuttal. That's right. I stand corrected. I apologize. That's all right. We have you have a rebuttal, an opportunity for a rebuttal. Now you could split up that time between the architect and the applicant, or either or just one. So staff, how many minutes do they have? 2-minute rebuttal. So whoever wants to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Can I, this is what I ask, can I,
If you would speak into the microphone.
sorry.
please. And state your name for the record.
can I provide like a DVD?
State your name for the record, please. I'm
sorry, Christina Whartonby.
Yes, and the question is?
If I can, I've got videotape. Rubik Ovanesian, I'm going to be very blunt.
Is this within your 2-minute?
Fine.
Very good. Go ahead.
The man is the biggest liar I've ever met. I have videotape here of him screaming and yelling racial epithets at us, saying we should kiss his ass because he didn't sell the old property to some Cholo Armenians, so we should kiss his ass. He's going to cut down the hedge. He never said, God bless you. He never said, I like the property. He is trying to get us not to build. That given, when somebody lies like that, everything that he's saying goes out the window. He is a liar. We are just minding our own business, trying to make this. The reason that we've built it the way we've built it with Franco, he can tell you there's no other way for us to get what we need and pushing it back. We're well within the city's requirements of the setbacks. The hedges are only not going to be there if Rubik gets his way. So one saying one thing, one saying another. Vartan came over the other night. He was in our backyard telling us, why don't you put the storage in the basement? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why does he care? We signed off on he knocked down his house and built it for 3 years. We never once called and complained to the city. We were well within our rights. 3 years of having construction vehicles, banging, all the construction, everything, for 3 years. We gave him our blessings because we said it's a nice design, go for it. This is the thanks that we get. The neighbors that we have, all of those on there, by the way, I don't know who Mr. Ovanesian got to sign, but I would look those up and see who these people are, because you can look on the little map of all the neighbors, and ours are all the adjacent neighbors. Everyone we knocked and rang the doorbell gave us a signature. We didn't have anyone say no. It's 2 people. That's it. That's what I have to say. All we want is to spend time with our family in our home with a back, Grandview is a busy street. We don't want the hedges gone.
Okay. Insofar as your question on the video,
Can we submit a DVD to you with? I'll make copies right
it
now.
won't be part of the record.
It's so what? But does that? I mean, is it too late? Basically. Right.
On the walls.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to prove that he is unworthy. he's just lying.
If I may speak on this, our board really will look at the merits of the project and not so much the character of the person that's coming up to speak. So they present their thoughts, they give us material, facts, or whatnot, and we look through it along with everything else.
Right.
But what we base our decision on is the package that's presented to us and the discussion that's taken place, and we don't really care so much about the characters of the people. So I wouldn't worry about it as much. If it makes you comfortable, you could certainly make a DVD of it and present it to staff.
I just want to show his...
Wonderful.
That's it.
But at the end of the day, since it's not part of the record,
Okay.
and
It
it
doesn't
won't be
really-
part of the
it
record,
doesn't
but
really
feel
matter.
free to submit it if you would.
I'll send you a YouTube link.
There you go. And so since the applicant took all the rebuttal time, then at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of this hearing. Okay. Who wants to go first today? There you go. Thank you.
Wow, quite a lot to digest, huh? Let me start off by first saying I think that the addition that's proposed, I think the architecture of it does lend itself to a lot of the cues from the existing house. I think it does go around. The matter of, I guess, setbacks and those kinds of things, that thing seems to be the main sort of point of contention is it's sort of already been determined for us in a sense that if mountain is the front and those are the sides, and that's already determined. And so those are the guidelines that we abide by, and those are the things that we look at, or that I look at. And so, and I think that there is sort of a difference between having a single wall that follows the line of the property line going all the way across, and blocking that and saying I'm at 6 feet, I'm at 6 feet. And what it's doing here is more of a sawtooth going at an angle, so it's not perceived the same. I mean, 6 feet is 6 feet. That corner will be 6 feet, but it's not perceived the same way. And so I think you're making efforts into trying to not create this giant wall at that sort of 6 foot line. I do have some recommendations on getting it down maybe a couple of feet. I think that that corner, and as you turn the corner, you'll see it on which one is this? The south elevation. It becomes very clear how tall it is because you're going against the slope of the site. And hearing sort of the story of who you're wanting to build it for, the people that are coming there, the age of maybe some of the people that would be using it, I would strongly recommend that you try to make it an accessible space and not have steps and those kinds of things too, because it becomes it's an issue.
Oh, we can't have cross communication. I'm sorry.
It's a recommendation. You could do with it what you like. I'm just saying, having 70-some-year-old people climbing steps to get to their bedrooms and kinds of things are not sort of accessible ways of building nowadays. So I just throw it out there. My recommendation would be to lower the addition that you have 2 feet and keep it all at the same level at the point that you have it now, instead of having an 8-foot ceiling and then dropping another 2 feet, having a 10-foot ceiling for your family room and those kinds of things. And I think it could be done by shifting maybe the roof lines a bit, restarting that. Other than that, I think material-wise, it matches well. I think you're trying to take those cues. The whole hedge thing, who's in charge of maintaining this or that, we're looking at what's there now, and it's covering most of the view of what's there. If it wasn't there, then we could deal with it the way it is. But I think for what I see, I just want a little more clarification on the windows. I wasn't quite sure what the windows that they were calling out for were, but I think otherwise, a couple minor things here and there, and I'm okay with the project, and I would support it. So it's calling out for divided light wood windows, painted. And
Geldwood.
I don't know if Geldwood, maybe they make a solid wood window. I guess that's what they're proposing.
I think it says wood in the statement.
But I guess it's a solid wood on the outside too. No
So we could
cladding
ask
of
the
anything.
architect
So,
at some
yeah.
point to come up, and we'll make a list of questions for him, one of which is that.
But I think that's the extent of my comments on that.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Ms. Palmer?
I agree with the previous comments, but I would also want to comment, we're really not here to go over the interior floor plan layout, but considering the fact that you're having some elderly people, you might want to consider widening some of those areas. You've got a very narrow bathroom, and you get 3 feet here, 4 feet there. You might make it more accessible because you might end up with a wheelchair or something of that nature. I, too, think the materials and the design complements the existing house. I'm not sure in the east side where the existing entry is, it looks like there's a spindly little post right in here. And it just may be the drawing, but you might want to consider making that look a little heavier to blend with the new addition. And as far as those 2 windows on the east side, I think staff made a recommendation on. I don't have an issue with the size. Maybe they're centered, right now it's wider on one side than it is on the other side, so maybe they're just proportionally put in there. But I support the project the way it's shown.
Thank you. Mr. Aliano?
Great, thank you. I think the comments thus far are quite agreeable. I'm looking at the site plan. I'm looking at what this exhibit here that was given to us, and it seems to me that if there's a concern about safety, if there's a concern about the sidewalk, one could still put the sidewalk in here, and even if the hedge were gone, I think there's still enough setback because you do have a huge parkway, and then you have that additional 6 feet that you're proposing. So I'm not sure that there's for me, it's not an issue. I think that this corner lot being the way it is, it's already fairly spacious, especially at the corner. I mean, it's very open. Your house is not right at the corner. I mean, that whole corner there's a huge setback. So when you get to that intersection, there's a feeling of openness, and it's not crowded. Given the fact that there also is an existing garage just to the south, that's sort of bookending your addition in a sense. There's already an existing structure there that actually warrants an addition, an extension of your house at that location. So, I think you've done a good job in laying it out without touching the existing structure. I mean, there are things that you could do, I suppose, to sort of, you don't have to do it, but I think, sort of make the neighbors a little more comfortable, you could make that project room a little bit shorter. Not project, but the activity room, I think you call it the game room. I mean, if it were even a couple of feet shorter, it would give you a little bit more space there. And then I don't think that really would hurt your game room because it's fairly large already. So I would say as a suggestion, you could sort of throw that in there as a way to sort of show some response and not just stick with what you have entirely, and just sort of a gesture to make things a little bit easier. As far as the architecture, Franco has come before us many times, and he always does a nice job. And I have no issues with the architecture. I do agree with the staff comments. If you feel that we should round the edges, I think that's agreeable to me. You've worked with the applicant closely, so I'm sure that that's going to go in the right direction. There is one thing that there are 2 things that I want to ask the architect if you could come up. One, I think, has to do with something you brought up about the windows. I'm a little unsure what's going on with the windows because you're calling them as a paint finish. Are these...
State your name for the record.
Franco Noravian, architect.
These are wood windows that are going to get painted.
Inside and outside.
I see. Okay, very good. And then the other question I have is, which I think would be another way to sort of respond to some of the concerns of the neighbors across the street, is there any reason why you have to maintain this ridge line the way it is? Because you are actually, in a sense, this is the floor line of the existing house.
Right.
And then you have this guest bedroom back here with the bathroom back there, all on the same elevation.
Right.
But then back on the other side, you're stepping down into a little...
Right. Right.
And that living room is actually at this elevation.
Right.
So, in a way, the way I'm looking, maybe I'm missing something. You could actually cut the ridge right here and drop this, because this is actually quite. And once you drop that, now you're creating even a more picturesque view from here, where this ridge actually comes down to here. So it's just another way to sort of bring things down and make it less.
I don't know.
So I wanted to know what's your response to that?
It was, we had it like that. I think it was a suggestion by Jay to keep the single ridge. Originally, we had it lower, and in our discussions.
Well, I would say, given the what's come up here today, I would say that maybe, if it's feasible to do that, I would say do that, because then it's sort of, it breaks down that mass even more. I appreciate the consistent ridge, but given, you have now a house here this is one story here, somewhere here, but as you get closer to that, this is getting fairly tall, and the garage next door is probably somewhere here.
Right.
So you could, once you bring this down, now you're creating a better integration between that garage and the addition. And I think if the hedge were to come down someday, at least you have a better transition rather than a garage and all of a sudden this huge. So I would, I would throw that in there and see how far we can go with that. I mean, I definitely would look at that. And I'm clear on the windows. I would definitely support the barrel tile, not the S tile. And it looks like, to me, it looks like a very sensitive addition. I know there's neighbors that are opposing it, but I'm also looking at the list of people that are signed that are in the immediate neighborhood, whereas the people that are opposing it, most of them, as I look, are not even in the neighborhood. So I think you have overwhelming support in the neighborhood, and I can't, just in good conscience, I can't oppose it. I think you're doing good work. So I support the project, and I will vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano.
Any more
Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Thank you. Thank you, Franco. As I look through this project as well, I think I agree with my colleagues in that it is well designed, well illustrated, and fits quite nicely in with the overall scheme of the existing neighborhood. We have a very prominent corner here, and this building is set so far back from Mountain, which is very nice, and that was the initial intentions of the planners and the architects and the residents and so forth, and this is maintaining that. Staff mentioned that there were some discussions about a possible second-story addition, in which case it would have been a completely different situation than what is proposed here. This is much milder and less bulky, less massing, and so forth, which we are taking into consideration. And we appreciate that, because it's not often that people move forward in such a sensitive manner, which is what is presented here. And overall, I support the project, and I don't think it's obtrusive. What I did witness was quite a bit of hostility amongst neighbors and the people that were here. And as you all know or are aware of, they could always appeal your case and so forth and somewhat. So my advice always is to try to negotiate and try to compromise before things move down further. Some of the thoughts and comments that Mr. Aliano has brought up in breaking up the massing of that game room and perhaps even lowering it, perhaps clipping 2 feet of it or whatnot to create more of a setback, are compromises that one puts forward and good gesture and so forth. There's some other thoughts that come to mind. These hedges do a wonderful job of camouflaging the building, and they've been there forever. Some thoughts have come forward where these hedges could disappear one day. You could, and I'd like to hear Ms. Palmer's opinion on this, is literally plant your own hedges right behind that hedge. And it could be some sort of a ficus hedge, it could be some other flowering hedge, and other types of landscaping where you're absolutely not dependent whatsoever on what the city does. You have a flowering hedge, and secondly, you've assured your privacy and your neighbor's privacy. So that's another very easy remedy of what I see as possible solutions that you could work out in the next 2 weeks. Again, you have 2 weeks, they have 2 weeks to appeal you or whatnot, and if it does, it just drags on forever. So those are the 2 weeks that you guys, I hope, will be able to work with your neighbors and come up with something. Ms. Palmer, insofar as that suggestion is concerned of planting a secondary row of hedges, maybe some flowering hedges and
I don't
whatnot?
think it's an issue. I mean, at such time that the hedges do come down, they could plant, I mean, I would consider that way that whole elevation will be facing the street, and I would consider doing a landscape palette that would complement the house rather than just sticking a hedge up.
And what about...
It can be solved.
Okay. What about doing it now? So, because we've heard some of the neighbors, especially people across the street, doing it now, letting it mature over the years. So, in such a time that if the city decides to do it, then there's no impact whatsoever.
I wouldn't recommend that. You'd be competing with existing large roots from that huge shrub that's there, and that might not be the type of landscape that they would want to come up with, where they might create a whole new entry with layered landscaping rather than putting a hedge up.
I understand. Okay.
Can I get a clarification?
Yes, Mr. Aliano.
You know, the hedges that we're talking about, if you look at the drawing that they gave us, and even if you look at the pictures that were given to us, based on their drawing, the hedges appear to be on the inside of their property line. So I'm trying to understand, is it the overgrown hedge that's sort of extending over the property line that's an issue, or is it where the hedges are planted? Because even from the pictures and what you show me here...
I would like to try to answer that question. There was a survey that where the hedges were shown to be outside of the property lines, and these drawings are done in error to show the hedges to be inside the property line.
So these are incorrect?
These are incorrect.
Okay.
So the barks and the roots and whatnot are within the right-of-way.
Right-of-way, yes.
So then this actually is good information, because if, in fact, the site plan... Let's look at the site plan. You're saying that this hedge right now, that the property line is actually further that way. Well, that means
it's
that
the other end.
the
The hedges
hedges
are
are
outside.
Oh, I see. So it's the hedge that's the property. Okay, I got it. Well, I don't have a point then. Sorry.
Well, and so those were some of the thoughts that I had. And again, we've seen this so many times where neighbors come here and they clash, and then there's appeals, and there's just a whole bunch of trouble and heartache and emotions that I know that come about it. So that's just something to consider. Okay. Well, I wanted to ask that landscape question, Ms. Palmer, being the landscape architect, and it seems as though if we do plant some secondary hedges, that they're going to compete with the existing hedges. And so then we could also put in some sort of a condition then that in such a time, I would support a condition that in such a time, if the city were to remove these hedges, then the applicant would have to plant hedges of similar type and color and whatnot along the property line.
Simonia, couldn't they actually take the hedges out now? Couldn't they
I don't
take
think I don't think we could designate that they plant hedges. It could be a whole new entry landscape. I mean, I would think if they took the hedges out, we might require a landscape plan, or we require them to landscape it complementary to the architecture, but I don't think we should designate you have to put a hedge up. I mean, the hedges have been there, and they're working within the hedges being there, but I don't think that's something that they have to do in the future.
So a landscape plan to be approved by staff at that point in time.
Well, I don't know that, I mean, it could be 20 years before the hedges come out.
Yeah, well, those are
We
just
would
some...
just say they have to landscape, but every landscape plan doesn't have to go before the staff.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like anybody redoing their yard.
Mm-hmm.
And couldn't I guess the city would have to decide, but couldn't they take the hedges out now and plan to put hedges only in that area where the addition is and put them on their property now so they start growing? They couldn't do that?
Again, the hedges in question are in the public right-of-way. There is no plan at this point in time to remove the hedges. Any type of landscaping within the public right-of-way in front of a person's property is essentially the city's property, although the property owner is required to maintain it. It'd be like a grass and a tree in the public right-of-way in front of a sidewalk home.
That's right.
So you're required to maintain it, but you're required also to allow it to continue to grow there, as opposed to take it out or to
But the thing is, we're talking about something, even if those edges, like a point I tried to make earlier was, even if the hedge were to come out, it's not like we're looking at an ugly structure. I mean, this is a very nicely designed building, so I suppose you can decide that when you get to that point, if the hedges do come out.
I think that would be the point, because we've heard this before in the past. I mean, the board themselves has said you can't plant landscaping in order to screen an ugly building. You're charged with making sure that the architecture is what is acceptable and compatible
Right.
with the surrounding.
I mean, in a sense, if the hedges were to come down, it actually gives more space to that parkway. So the building is further back, and it steps up. So I don't know the issue. I don't know that there's an issue. All right, I'm okay.
Okay. Okay, so there were some suggestions that were made.
I have one more
I
comment.
would definitely pursue those.
Depending on what you do with dropping that area, that game room, if we don't drop it down, I would suggest all the other gable areas have little vents on them, and that particular game room looks somewhat onto the adjacent. Maybe you add a vent to match the other gable vents. Just a suggestion.
The plaintiff to do it anyway.
Okay. Mr. Aliano,
Yes.
some of those comments that you made, do we want to make them in the form of suggestions or conditions? Or do you want to?
It's how the board feels. As far as dropping the ridge, I will probably make that consideration because I would like staff to work with that because it looks good from that view to keep the ridge the way it is, which is probably why it was decided to keep the ridge the way it is. But given the discussion that we had today, it might be worth looking at dropping it to see what it would look like from the other view and then to restudy this view to make sure that we're not creating these little houses that sort of...
It would be in a form of
Right.
recommendation.
Yeah, so I would say we recommend that you study that, but wouldn't make it a requirement. Putting the game room shorten it 2 feet, I mean, that's sort of a mathematical thing. I don't know that could impact the ridge height because now you're making the building narrow so it drops the ridge a little bit lower. So I would maybe take those two and work with those two together and see what could be done to either pull that out westerly more and then drop the ridge and see what would happen. So I would just leave it up to staff and the architect.
Okay, so we'll identify that as a consideration, and we'll also double-check with Jay Platt. He had recommended that the ridge line maintain a consistency, and I think that was primarily because the rest of the house, even though it has a lot of different forms, it has a consistent ridge line. So we'll double-check with him because there may be a potential this becomes in the future part of a historic district, and we would want to take care about that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, does staff want to go over some of the
Yes. Yes,
concerns
I would
or,
like to go over some of them. And I would, as soon as I'm done, I'll ask you whether you want it to be as a recommendation or a condition. Mister, you added a comment about lowering down the portion of the addition so that there are no steps to make it more accessible and eliminate steps and up and downs.
Recommendation.
That's a recommendation as well, okay. And then Ms. Palmer also recommended adding wider doors for bathrooms for accessibility.
Just a comment.
Just a recommended comment, okay. And there was one comment made by Ms. Palmer regarding the post at the back entrance, where the post looked thinner and you said maybe it should be heavier.
Get in proportion to,
And that would be a recommendation as well. Would you want to add that as a recommendation? Okay.
it's existing, so we just...
All right. And then a condition was added by Ms. Palmer to add a vent on the south elevation under the gable, where to match the rest of the house. And I assume that was a condition. Okay. Moving on, Mr. Alian already clarified his comments. They will be a recommendation, and they would sort of go hand in hand together to work it out, see if it can be done. And we will double check that with J. Platt as well. And then lastly, Mr. Simonian had comments regarding the plants, but Ms. Palmer indicated that it would be
So those are just comments.
competing against the existing plants if we put a new hedge along their property line. So I guess we would not be requiring a new landscape plan at this point. That was my feeling.
We just want to make it part of the record that, and if the city would ever to bring those shrubs, then the applicant would landscape that portion of it appropriately.
All right. Okay. That's all I had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
And then the staff's conditions, we had 3 conditions. Would you like for us to include those or not?
Your recommendations? I agree with those.
Okay, so we'll include those as well.
Okay. With that, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve based on the conditions mentioned.
Is there a second?
Let me check one thing before I
Mr. Alian was verifying something.
I just want to verify something here. I remember the conditions, but maybe you need to read them again because I can't recall one of them.
The staff recommended conditions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Can't
I
find
will.
them here.
Okay, I will try to remember. One of them was to provide 2 piece barrel tiles, and that was actually the third one. Second one was to redesign the proportion of those 2 windows because they seem to be small. And the first condition, recommended condition, was to provide rounded edges.
I'm good.
They're fine?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion by Ms. Palmer and a second by Mr. Yu. This is a roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Very good. Our next case is 1-PDR-2010-024-A, 624 Geneva Street. And Mr. Cross is our planner on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Simone, members of the board. The case before you tonight is case number 2010-24A. It's located at 624 Geneva Avenue. This is a first-time submittal for final review. The applicant is requesting to construct a new 5-unit, 2-story multifamily building in the R1250 zone on a single lot that's approximately 10,370 square feet in size, and a total of 10 parking spaces will be provided in 5 individual 2-car garages with direct access to each unit. The project includes 2 driveways located on the southwest corner of the property, directly adjacent to each other, separated by a small landscaped area. One driver provides access to 4 of the 5 garages, and the other provides access to the 5th garage. This is a joint project between the San Gabriel Valley Habitat for Humanity and the Glendale Housing Authority to provide affordable housing for the city, and so all 5 units are proposed to be affordable to low-income households. The project qualifies for and received a parking concession that's pursuant to the state density bonus law to reduce the number of parking spaces from the code standard requirement of 14 spaces to 10 spaces. The applicant also received approval for 3 variances from the planning hearing officer on April 1st, 2010, that include allowing the construction of a 5-unit residential project where cars from one of the 5 units will back out onto a non-local street. The second variance was to allow a parking at the ground level within individual 2-car garages and not within a subterranean or semi-subterranean garage, and to provide approximately 817 square feet of common open space where the code requires 1,000 square feet. The maximum height of the building is proposed at just over 23 feet, where the code would allow a maximum height of 36 feet. All 5 units would include 3-bedroom units. The units range in size from approximately 12,000 square feet to, 1,200 square feet to 1,300 square feet. The project is designed to include private open space for each unit at both the first and second floors, So all 5 units are proposed to include between 110 and 140 square feet of private open space, where the code would only require 40 square feet per unit. I just kind of want to get a little bit of background about the project site itself. The project site was originally consisted of 2 undeveloped lots that total approximately just over 16,000 square feet. Both lots are currently owned by the City of Glendale Housing Authority, and a lot line adjustment was approved on March 4th, 2010. That increased the width of the lot proposed for development from 50 feet to 72 feet. And the newly created lot would be deeded to San Gabriel Valley Habitat for Humanity for the proposed development. The remaining lot, which is located at 630 Geneva Street, is approximately 5,760 square feet in size and will remain under current ownership and will be temporarily developed as a community garden. Eventually, that project site would be used for a freeway bypass street if there's ever kind of any funding available for that. That's really far down the road. No one's sure if that's even going to happen or not. So the project is oriented to take advantage of the adjacent community garden with the private open spaces facing onto the garden. Overall, the site planning is well conceived and is of an appropriate mass and scale for the neighborhood. The craftsman style of the proposed project is compatible with the neighborhood and context and is consistent throughout the project site with appropriate details and materials. Staff supports the project and recommends that the board approve the project with 3 recommended conditions in the report, which include the project is proposing vinyl windows, and staff feels that those are appropriate in this case, provided that those windows are of a high quality. Currently, they're proposing Gen Weld, like premium Atlantic vinyl, and so we're recommending that those type of windows or some form of an equal quality of a higher quality vinyl window. And also that the second condition would be that project should use double or single hung windows rather than sliding windows. And then if they do decide to use divided lights, then they should use more of a contoured or 3-dimensional grill should be used rather than the just kind of like, I guess, pressed in glass mullions or something like that. And then the standard condition that for most multifamilies would be the backflow preventers need to be approved by location from the building prior to building permit issuance. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Do we have any questions for Mr. Cross?
No.
Our first speaker is Vicky Barbieri. If you would state your name for the record.
I will, I promise. My name is Vicky Barbieri, and 210 North Central Avenue, Suite 200. We are the architects for this project. And I think what Mr. Krause has explained for this project, from the site planning to the kind of simplify or modified craftsman style to kind of take the essence of the style, but knowing that it's for Habitat for Humanity projects and we are always under such a limited budget, we try to simplify certain elements that in other circumstances we wouldn't incorporate in it. I read the conditions from staff and I agree with them. The idea of the sliding windows is kind of desperation kind of idea, because we have done many, as you know, many other projects from Habitat for Humanity, some in this style, some in more modern styles. We have always used single-hands windows. And then you will say, why are you proposing sliding glass windows? Because, as you well know, we are kind of going through a very deep economic crisis in this country. And the situation of donations and money availability for these projects, it has been very, very difficult to collect money, and it's still very difficult. That doesn't justify that we want to introduce an element like sliding windows in this architecture that doesn't have absolutely nothing to do. In discussion with Habitat for Humanity in the last couple of days, we have come to an agreement that I would like to propose to you, and if it's acceptable, we will be happy. We have 2 types of windows in this project. One that are the largest windows that belongs to the bedrooms, mainly for exit situations, and then for dining rooms or for living room areas. Those larger windows, definitely we would go with single-hang windows. Then we have another series of very small windows that they are for bathrooms or closets or to light stairways. It's a series that you can see in the facade that I think they are maybe 2 by 2 or 2 by 2.5. And I would like to propose, would it be possible, because I was analyzing, because the windows are going to be surrounded with really big trims, white trims, to kind of hide or cover as much as possible the material of the windows. If what those small windows, we could stay in the sliding mode, and the grids, of course, are this kind of grid that have forms, are not flat, and they are outside the glass, to the outside of the facade. If we could do that kind, that the largest windows could come back to be single hang and the very small windows could be sliders, that it would help Habitat enormously, because the difference in cost in between those small windows, tiny windows, sliders, and tiny windows, single hang, is enormous. In the largest windows, of course, we have a big increase in cost, but kind of justify it. And those small windows, seems to me that wouldn't. But of course.
So you're talking about the bath, not the kitchen windows, but the
No, the little ones that are in bathrooms, little windows,
Yeah.
bathrooms and kitchen. No, of course, the kitchen, no. There is a series of very little
Yeah, I
windows.
see them. They're 2 by 2s or somewhat.
Exactly. And I said it wouldn't be, I think, so easy to see the difference, and it would make a really difference in our cost of the windows for the project. In reference to all the rest, the other two, I don't have no objections. And
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions?
Can you tell me what the material is on the driveways?
in the driveways,
The
it will be
material.
concrete.
It's concrete?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have the brown color? I didn't see the...
For the concrete,
No, on the siding.
those are the color for the siding.
Right, but like 80% of the color is brown.
Well, no, the problem is that it seems, but it is not. It's the very, very dark green. When we printed in the computer, we tried to do, I can't even tell you, in our office, outside of our office. Yes,
This
that's
is the main color of the...
That's
and
the main
this
color.
is sort of the other green of the...
Exactly.
door. Okay.
We could never come back to that dark green.
I like the brown.
For what? I don't know. You like it? It's up to grab. You like it brown, I can go brown. I think it would make a big difference. But there is a house here in California or Wilson, and one street parallel to Brand that I drive every day, huge house in this style, very old, that is all in dark green. I don't know if somebody has, with white trims, and it's built in the 1800s, I imagine, huge, two-story, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Just a
This
quick
is why
question.
maybe I inspire myself in the dark green. Yes, sir.
Quick question. And the front unit on the main street,
Yes.
is there a reason why the main entrance area doesn't have a cover?
All the units
like
have
the brown.
covered, I think. Oh, no.
No, the
I'm
entry.
sorry.
I mean, unless I'm reading it wrong, it's just right where the door area. There's a tower portion, but there's no covering over the door
The
area.
units that front the future garden or the freeway, or the unit that front the street in
The street.
Geneva?
Geneva.
No, maybe I don't recall.
Right, some of this little white.
Oh, maybe it's because of my setback.
Yeah, right there.
I have to have 23-foot setback in the second story, and maybe that is, and I'm still been fighting with that stairs going second story to be able to have enough space for a decent dining
The
room.
only reason I'm asking is because you've created sort of a little nice little porch entry area, and the portions that are not accessible in the porch area, it's covered, but then the main entrance is not, so I was just wondering. So,
I don't, if I
Okay,
have to
we can-
be honest,
we can
I
keep
can't
talking.
recall that detail on the plans.
okay.
I don't have plans in front, but I can see it. If you would like, I will go to the podium and I can look at that entry. Surprise me, but it's
We'll
possible.
do that then. Okay, thank you.
So so you prefer the two green scheme rather than the green and the brown scheme? Is that, or is that
I don't think the brown wasn't meant to be brown, I don't think.
That's what happened, is the print.
I see.
For one reason, I went
Oh,
to
it's a
photographic.
computer issue.
I went to photographic, I did it in my office, and all come with this brownish color, and this is why we bought the actual color. I got the paint, actual siding pieces to show you exactly the color that was going to be.
I'm also wondering-
Instead to bring the little cheap, because they were so particular, the
The
colors.
shingle is the brown, though. Okay, so it's okay. I get
But
it.
in reality,
Right, so
like I said, the house that is in the corner is gorgeous, and it's original.
This brown looks good, though.
And the brown looks good. Then in the office, everybody was saying, what do we do? Brown, well, we had the paint already. Kind of that situation.
Do we have any more questions for the
I'm
architect?
good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You will.
The next speaker is Mark Fordowy. Fordy. If you would state your name for the record. Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, board members. I'm Mike Fortney, the Housing Project Manager with the city. I just wanted to come and voice my support for the project. I think this will be the 7th project that Community Renewal Housing has done with Habitat for Humanity. We have an E&A with them now, an exclusive negotiating agreement with them now. The difference with this project and any other projects, this project they have committed to building Build It Green. So we'll be making sure that this project gets certified Build It Green by Green Point Rating. So very excited about that. And the E&A expires at the end of the year. We're hoping to break ground on this shortly thereafter. So just, again, wanted to voice my support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come down. Is there others in the audience that would like to speak on this project or case? If you do, you could come up and speak and then put in a card afterwards. Okay. Well, since there were no other speakers, does the architect want to come up with some final thoughts? It's usually reserved for rebuttal.
Rebuttal.
You have 2 minutes. Any thoughts that you might have forgotten to mention in the beginning?
Back, Vicky Barbieri. I'm intrigued about that covered entry still. I don't recall, but I would like to have the chance to look over and maybe review it,
Okay.
the stuff, because
You want to have the architect
Could it
come up
be-
and point out what
Sure,
you're
you wanna
talking
come
about?
up
If you
and
would, come on
do
out.
it together.
We have the... There it is. Thank you, Mr. Yu.
Question that I had was regarding this entrance
is
here.
this,
And basically on the lower level, you have sort of this nice entry piece with the guardrails, which this guardrail is actually not shown there, but you know, you have this nice entryway made up.
Yeah.
On the upper level, there's no cover above the door. I was just wondering if there was
Well,
a reason why.
I think it is, because I think the doors are in this level. See this? You see the stairs? Yes, this stairs here, the door is
At this point here,
pass inside,
right here,
yeah. Little bit, no, that's what we like to.
it's maybe a foot, maybe.
Maybe a foot, you are absolutely
That's
right.
not very.
But then it's still something working inside here, because we are doing some modifications, because I'm not happy with this space. Until today, this afternoon that I was coming here, in all the projects, we are very proud, 1,100 square feet
Right.
for 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom. I think it's pretty good, but I still, in this room, we are not happy with that space.
So I would say take a look at that, make sure
Yeah,
that matches.
definitely.
Another question I had was this. This
one,
toilet
that's-
portion is supposed to be this part right here, right?
Yes? No, it has a window. It's supposed to be this.
It's that there?
Yeah, you see this?
Okay, then what is this portion?
And this one's supposed to be this. And then supposed to be the window. That is this window
Okay.
that is here. that I think in the
Okay,
future.
so then this is all same plane then, going up?
No, there is a roof here, or is here.
So there's supposed to be a roof here then?
Supposed to be, maybe it's a mistake here.
Because the only reason I was asking is, well, I was just wondering why the same color was being carried out here and how it was connected.
Yeah, I think
And
they
it's
are
not
not
matching that.
showing this roof over here. You are absolutely right.
It extends over.
Yeah. Plus, we are working with the companies. We have our pole, electrical pole in this position. It means that we are assuming that we are going to use this
That wall
wall,
as your panel?
that is this wall, for all our panels.
Okay.
And because we are using a series of panels on the roof for the electricity, then the whole system is going to be here out of the view, and it has to be roof. And I brought those panels to show, and I forgot to even show it, but it's all taken care. And
The
they
last
need to
thing
be-
that I wanted to
yes.
ask you just was, I know that you were talking about making these sort of the single hung. I don't know if the proportions would lend to that. You would almost have to have two windows, but then you'd end up with a middle divider, which
Yeah,
would...
always we got in these cases, I'm sorry that I touched it, we will have to have these two windows here. We have a pole, it will be wood, and then we will have the typical,
Yeah, I think your cost is going to almost double on that thing.
kind of, and this will be simple. I've been investigating the type of window that still have exit for the
Is there enough
bedrooms and the
egress?
cost.
Is there enough
It's like
egress on that?
$150 each. I mean, it's going to almost double
Yeah.
in between this to this, but of course the
But do you have
egress-
enough egress room out of the bedrooms?
Yes,
if you
they
divide it
have
up?
to be 5 feet. This will lower like 1 foot from the top of the roof. I have the new facade, I didn't bring it. It's 5 feet by 3, but it's going to give us enough exit for the fire. Yeah.
I think you need 24 by 20.
Yeah, but they have to be clear when the opening, and then this is why
It's
we've
gonna
been
be
talking
close,
to the
yeah.
company. But it's
Okay.
going to look better, architecture is going to be like this, of course it's going to cost money.
Oh, and the
Yeah.
slight offsetting, is that on purpose, or what? What were you
Well,
thinking of doing?
in reality, I didn't bring it over here.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, I would understand if this was a little further out, then it wouldn't look like an accident, but just being slightly off of that center just kind of throws it off a little bit. So I was just wondering what your idea was based on
It
that.
has to do with interior of the kitchen,
Okay, so
because
that's
we
nothing.
lay out this kitchen in large scale, and to be able, it's such a small space, and to be able to use the corners, as you can see here, when I have a corner that need to be usable, and then the dishwashers, and then it's automatically offset my window.
Right, but I think 6 inches off of a sink is probably more tolerable than, put off on the elevation.
Whatever makes you happy.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I take it there's no more questions for the architect?
I'm okay. I got to ask her all the questions, so I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Thank you. So with that, I'll go ahead and close the public portion. Mr. Aliano, do you want to start this one?
Sure. I think these types of projects, particularly this one, they're the type of project that difficult, because the budget, the complications, and at that level. And I think this one in particular, I haven't looked at the drawings, and I think it's commendable. I think a project of this nature, especially with such tight budget, and that you're able to do such nice things with it, and so much interest in terms of the elevations, the planes shifts, and roofscape, and all that, and even the windows that being suggested now double hung. I really don't have any concerns, because there are actually several projects done by the same architect in the similar style for Habitat for Humanity that have turned out really nice. The one that comes to mind is the one on Pacific. I think it's more of a burgundy color. And I think this is in the same flavor. This actually is a little more traditional, because it doesn't have those stair towers that are more contemporary, have a little more contemporary twist. So I I don't really have any concerns. I agree with the staff comments. I think the architect agrees to them. I don't really have an issue with making the smaller windows a slider, given that they're small. And again, it's in the spirit of the project. We're trying to make projects like this buildable, and because they're important. And I think, in these kinds of projects, we need to be very sensitive to those kinds of things. So I'm full support, and I know it's going to be another great one. So I will vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano. Mr. Yu?
I like the project. I think it's well designed. I think there are just a couple, drawing things that just need to be worked out, but the styling of it is well, and it's carried out throughout the building. I think it's well done. Like you said, this project is sort of unique in a sense that there are a little more restrictions to it, and so there's a lot more things that you need to deal with. I would actually be okay with the windows that are there now as sliders, and maybe take a look at sort of the front street area, and then maybe change those out to a double hung to save some money on those. Because every dollar is going to count on this thing, and so I would be okay, or I would be into
For
discussing.
the back ones to be slider.
Yeah, because it is going to cost a lot more just for those windows, and it's not going to save the same function. You're going to be able to open up a wider opening for egress with these windows, with the sliders, and so I'd be okay with maybe considering maybe the front where it's viewable, maybe changing those out to a style that fits better, maybe. But so I'd be open to discussing that. I think I already talked about a few of the things that I was concerned with. Otherwise, the brown color, I think you're right. I think it is sort of feeling maybe not as dark as that, a little lighter, but that green is pretty bright, and it's sort of all in the same sort of muted. So I think it would have a little more pop if it was maybe a darker brown. Just a suggestion. I think that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer?
Well, I want to compliment the architect because I think it's well done, and I've seen a couple other projects, and they work out well. I like the brown only because it reminds me of a Craftsman, which are mostly brown, and I could go either way, but I would prefer the brown. But as far as the landscaping goes, I don't know if on this project we would have to have a licensed architect do the landscaping. It's a multifamily, or is that change when it comes to a...
It would be anyone that would be able to stamp off the plans. So if that's a licensed if it's a licensed architect, then
that's true. Well, I have some suggestions. I think there's a lot of the plant material. It's drought tolerant. It's goes with the architecture, but I think a lot of it is going to be a maintenance issue. And if this is a Habitat for Humanity, you're going to have kids and things. You've got gazania out in the front and daylilies, and this is going to be a huge snail problem at all times. And some plant material has bees, so I would just recommend considering other plant material. I have a list for you to consider other plant material that might be a little less of a maintenance issue. And this back community area on the east elevation, because it's, and we see this many times, they have to provide an open space, so it ends up really being a large backyard for one of the units. And that's where I see this. So I'm suggesting that maybe you have, because of the planting, you have areas that may be 7 to 10 feet wide, and it's really not conducive to other just than sitting. If you wanted to open up sort of the area behind the garage, less planting, and put like a barbecue and picnic table, and then plant the rest of it, I think it would be more conducive to it being a community area as opposed to just a private garden for that last unit. I think that's the only comments I have. As far as the windows go, I don't have a problem with the way the windows are. As far as a cost factor, I think it's fine.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. Before I get to my thoughts, there was one question I had which I forgot to ask the architect. There are some skylights right above the garages in the courtyard area. And it seems to me that they're lighting the garage, however, the garage doors have windows on them anyways. And so I was wondering if you might be able to come up and just answer that one question, is what is the intent of those windows, of those skylights?
It's very simple.
Name for the record,
Oh,
please.
Vicky
Thank you.
Barbieri. You are absolutely right. It's very simple. We have eliminated all those skylights.
Okay.
I'm sorry that they were remaining in the plans that we presented a couple months ago. But of course, we continue working in the project because this is such a special project that we work so closely with the structural engineers, and maybe the window moved 6 inches here because of the shear panel, and it's a lot of circumstances that this project you have to go through to be able to achieve a build it at 100,000 per unit. That is what these projects are built. Then maybe the window is not perfect, but the engineer needs those 3 inches, 4 inches for the shear panel instead to put strong walls, all kind of
So
circumstances.
basically, they've been eliminated.
We eliminated.
Wonderful. The second question is the toilet in unit number 5, adjacent to the entry, and I'm referring to
Yes.
this toilet. Do you have anywhere else you could relocate it to provide a nicer entryway into this common open area? Have you considered that?
For the handicap toilet.
Yes, but the idea is this common open area is just kind of in the back, which is fine because we've had this discussion many a times of the common open space being in the back. However, the path leading to it is important as well. And so that toilet being where it is really creates a bottleneck, and it's not as inviting and so forth. And especially being the kind of housing that it is, it's vital we give them some common open space and for them to spend some time on. So I'm wondering, is there a way you could relocate that in creating a more appealing access to the common open space?
I imagine we can. We've been tweaking with these projects little here and there. We need to sit down again and see how we move the stairs. You can, you are an architect, and I think your comment is very, very valuable.
Okay.
I really think so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was my question.
We will work those details. Thank
Thank you. I agree with the group and the board in that a tremendous amount of effort has gone in putting this package together. We could tell the drawings are done professionally, in a professional manner, I should say, and things have been worked out. I mean, in a very small lot, a lot has been packed in, and that's a lot to do with the variance as well that allowed, or that entitlements that allowed the parking reduction for this to occur. And so there's a lot of synergy behind it, and a lot of good is going to be created because of this project. Some of my thoughts were that common open space. Ms. Palmer identified it as well. I think especially for these multifamily units, and especially for what we're trying to create, it's vital that we have common open spaces that are usable. If it's in the back, I personally have approved projects previously where we've had the common open space in the back, and I don't have an issue with that. What I do have concerns with in this specific case is the fact that it's not inviting. You only have a 5-foot space between this toilet and the property line to access the common open space. And so that's just not a lot of room. And I would actually suggest that perhaps Arctic could relocate that toilet somehow in order to provide a more usable rear common open space.
May I add something to that? I mean, I think your point is good, but as you're describing, I'm thinking, I wonder whether, maybe having a private open space there is actually better, because we do have the freeway to the north, and creating a smaller opening into that open space, more of a sound issue. You get more of an enclosed sound barrier rather than trying to. Just a thought. I mean, I think it's something that definitely you can look at, but consider it.
Actually, you're right though, because I don't think they were intending to have any access from that side.
Access it over the
So
side.
it's all from this, the south side.
Yeah.
But if that was eliminated, I mean, it would increase that whole area.
Because we have that garden area just north of it, right? That street that's
But it
going
was
to
never
be...
intended, to go this way, but maybe it should be, to get a little more usable space out of it.
Right? I mean,
It's a good
I
idea.
guess the question is whether one would walk out of their front door or go through the rear, open their garage, and then go through with their barbecue material. And I would actually argue that they would go through the front door and come back there because, it just wouldn't make sense to go back and forth because then you would have to have your garage door opener with you as you're going through the back. So I would think that it is access from the front. However, Mr. Ariano does raise a good point in noise. And that's why we have a board. So we always go back and forth and discuss these things. So that is a concern of mine nonetheless, is the common open space and its accessibility from the north. The skylights were another issue that I had, but the architect has already mentioned that they've gotten rid of it because that's just an added cost and so forth. Especially in the case of fire, you got to walk over. The fire department would have to go over them to access the bedrooms. The other minor factor is I would suggest that staff work with the architect with the guardrails. They're depicted in a very pleasant way right now. They're not obtrusive. They have a lot of detail. It'd be nice to the end result be something as is depicted in these drawings. And I noticed there weren't any details of it. But I must say, a job well done for the architect. I could tell you take a lot of pride in your work, and it's illustrated in these drawings. So thank you so much for taking the time to put such a package together. And so perhaps, Mr. Cross, you could go over some of the thoughts that were presented. But before that, I guess Ms. Palmer has a question.
We don't have an irrigation plan, but I would just recommend, because the planting is predominantly in narrow areas, that you would use bubblers in those areas just to avoid overspray and excess water.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The comments that I think they're pretty much all recommendations or suggestions, not necessarily conditions on the project. I heard Board Member Aliano state that it's okay with, he's okay with using sliders on the smaller windows. Yeah, and then Board Member Yu indicated that he's okay with the sliders on the entire project, with the exception of those that are visible from the street, should consider using the double hung at that level. And then he's also okay with using a brown color rather than the green as the main color. Board Member Palmer indicated that she is okay with the brown color as well, and she's okay with the windows overall. I believe they could all be sliders in her opinion. I believe that's correct. Okay. And then she also recommended that you consider using plants that are less maintenance, have less maintenance involved, so that you don't have issues with dealing with snails or bees or any of those other kind of things. And so would make it a little bit less maintenance in terms of cost for landscaping maintenance. And then also to use less planting at the rear area, to maybe add a table or barbecue that would be allowing the common open space to be more usable. And then use bubblers as part of the irrigation system. And lastly, from Board Member Simonian, consider relocating the toilet in unit number 5. That would make the common open space more accessible from the north side of the building. And then also that the common open space should be more usable and inviting. And the other comment that from Board Member Simonian was to make sure that the staff works with the architect to ensure that the guardrails are as those that are depicted in the drawings.
Can I just add one more?
Yes, sir.
That the main entrance spaces have adequate covering overhead, if possible.
And so was there a consensus on the window configuration?
Insofar as keep them all as sliders?
Yeah, we did hear some disagreement on that point. The staff had conditioned single-hung windows, and we heard, yes, that's a good idea. We heard you can do sliders in the back, and we also heard sliders are okay everywhere. So a little direction would be helpful.
Well, I think, the architect sort of pointed out that the double hung will look nice, but I do agree with Mr. Yu. I mean, if we kind of met halfway and say, what if just the ones in the rear are slide? I mean, normally I would not want that. I like consistency. But given the nature of the project, where that money could be put into something else that might be more beneficial to the overall project, I think that would be a good compromise. So I would just leave it up to staff and figure out that, anything visible from the street and the side elevation, the north elevation, obviously, that's quite visible. I would tend to keep them double hung and then go sliders in the rear.
And then the small windows could also be sliders.
For sure, yeah. So I'm okay with, that's my comment.
Maybe those savings could be contributed to some amenities in the common open space.
So you're not saving any money anyways.
More livable space, I guess. Very good. Was there anything that Mr. Cross left out from our discussion? No? Okay, does someone want to entertain
The color, is that a consideration?
I like it both ways. I mean, normally the color palette that the architect has chosen for other projects, they've always been very successful. So I will leave it up to them. I think, I trust that the staff and the architect will do the right thing. So,
and the brown is appealing comparatively to the green. So that's something that the architect could work.
Can you work? I mean, maybe the staff can work together and see.
We'd like nothing better than to work with Vicky Barbieri. It's always our pleasure.
Very good. Were there any other items?
At all.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Actually true.
The way he said it is.
Are there any other items that we forgot to go over? No?
No, I'm good.
Very good. Then, does someone have a
I will move
recommendation?
to approve the project with the comments made and also supporting the staff recommendation as well.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, Jimmy.
I'll
second.
I moved.
The project is moved by Board Member Aliano, seconded by Board Member Yu. Have a roll call. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Simonia?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if we have any minutes for this evening because staff mentioned that the June 10th minutes are not available, correct?
They were not sent out in time, no. So
Very good. So then we'll move on to staff and board business or other discussion items, if there's any. Nope.
The next meeting for Design Review Board number 2, which is tentative. Oh, forgive me, I'm misspeaking.
Number 1.
For Design Review Board number 1 is the 22nd. Nope. Sorry. False alarm.
So we're announcing it for the other board, right?
Correct.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Meeting for the 29th is actually canceled. So,
Then is it time to adjourn?
would there be a motion to adjourn at 7:05?
Move to adjourn.